Yes.
Awesome. It is so great to have somebody else alongside that I can actually interact with, because when you do webinars, usually it's just yourself. So I can make sure that things are working the way they should. It will record this session automatically. I think it actually did as soon as I started the meeting. So if anybody wants to get back to that, I'm going to include that with a wrap up of the session today. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and get started. Anybody that joins, they can always get in and catch up with the recording if they need to. So today's webinar is called The Heart of a Disciple. And what we're going to be doing is covering the importance of core values from a biblical perspective. And I've got my buddy Britt here, who I've met through social media. I met a lot of awesome people. And Britt is one of my favorites because he blends faith and fun and impact and just a lot of wisdom. So what we're going to do is just give you a quick bio for ourselves, and then we'll get through the agenda and kind of just take off from there. My name is Derrick Henry. I like to have fun with that because I do have a name twin who plays for now he's in the Baltimore Ravens, was in the Titans. And the funny thing was he was on the Alabama Crimson Tide as they were crushing my team, A&M Aggies. So it's kind of fun to hear my name, but not so much for the wrong team. A little bit about me. I'm a doodle dad. I've got my screen bird a little bit because I have some stuff in the background, but every once in a while my doodles like to run around in the background. Technically, I'm a pro disc golfer. I don't play enough to really make much money with it, but I have won. I won $75 or so. The last event I played a month ago. That's fun. This picture is me hitting an ace at a course I wasn't that familiar with, so that was pretty cool. My wife, Sherry, and I are band parents. So if you know anything about band, that takes a lot of time. My oldest is about to graduate, go to OU. I'm sure, Britt, you'd love that. And then my youngest one, she's starting band, and she'll probably do all the same stuff. I'm an Excel nut, and a lot of the things I post on social and teach and things are about Excel. And of course, can't go on without the dad jokes. And that's where Britt and I have a little bit of history, which we'll touch on today. And I'm going to, I guess the last couple things, my day job, I'm a solutions consultant at OneStream. Great consolidation planning and close tool. If you're in the need for something like that, hit me up. I'm happy to help you with that. And then I do stuff on the side. I'll kind of cover that toward the end. Let Britt go real quick here, and then we'll jump into the content. And I'll animate these as you go, Britt. So take it away.
Okay, sounds good. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Britt Crawford. I'm a senior advisor for Phillips 66 and volumetric accounting. It's my 10th role in 10 years here. Have more accounting experience from other places and then leadership experience in the restaurant industry before here. So overall 20 plus years in leadership experience. I've been married for, we'll just say, a long time. I don't want to give away my age, but happily married to teenage sons, one who recently moved out of the house and one who's a junior in high school. I'm in Owasso, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Tulsa, for those of you not familiar with the area. Also, we've fostered and adopted 2 boxer pups. I had 2 before that. So we've now affirmed ourselves as a boxer home. So we love boxer dogs, even when they do crazy things like they did today and ate half the Christmas cookies that my wife was baking as they were cooling on the table. And then any of you that have followed me on social media or that have interacted with me know that I'm a bit of a jokester, and that's how Derrick and I initially hooked up. He actually stole my funniest accountant on LinkedIn crown from me, but don't worry, we will rematch and I will get it back. So one of the things that Derrick mentioned is core values, and so he had his at the bottom of his screen. You can see mine at the bottom here. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just kind of a glimpse of where my values are. And if you can't tell, I am a big goofball.
Of course, but that's what makes life fun, right? If I had a better way to kind of integrate fun into mine, I absolutely would. But accountants love acronyms. That's kind of where mine comes from. And so we'll get to that in just a moment here. But to make sure you guys get CPE, I know that's a big draw. I'm a CPA, so I need to get my hours in and such. If you take out your phone, you take a picture of this QR code, or you can also use the texting approach here that you can see. Go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to start off with one in just a moment. It'll be a fun one. The rest will be a little bit more serious. And that way we accommodate that requirement. If you have trouble with that, just let me know somehow with the Q&A on the side. So here's the first one. And again, you can use the QR at the top there. Britt and I like to have fun. So we're going to start with a fun one. What's funny is I'm assuming Britt has a database. I have an Excel file where I've got all the thousands of the good jokes I like to kind of keep and share. And the funny thing is, Britt, are you able to use this? Okay, good. It's starting to work. Sometimes it takes just a moment to kind of kick in. The funny thing is, I have a lot of jokes around cows, and I think it's really funny that somebody picked that first because I don't know. And my grandfather was a animal science professor. His son, my uncle, is a cattle rancher, so they've approved these as well. They're like, yeah, that's good. I would share that with people. So I'll give y'all just another couple moments to pick this again to make sure that takes your response if you need CP credits, because this is one of the ways we make sure that people are here. Let's see. I put some to the side just so I could make sure to have some without losing my train of thought. It looks like Surprise Me is going to win, which I think is kind of funny. Usually Cows wins just because it's random. Let's go with this one. I like to tease my plants. Yeah, well, go ahead.
I was actually afraid that I was just actually afraid that cows were going to win. I have one, of course, I do after you go, but
okay. I'll do two of these actually. I'll start with Surprise because I think I was going to win here. I like to tease my plants by watering them with ice cubes. Not in the winter, though, so much, because it never really melts. What's yours, Brett?
I'm trying to get ahead of my New Year's resolution, so I signed up for an exercise class, but they told me to wear loose-fitting clothes, and I was like, if I had loose-fitting clothes, I wouldn't have signed up for this class to begin with.
I'm going to have to steal that one. That's going on the list. That's a really good one. Okay, so we'll have some more of those as we go throughout this. Again, we want to keep it fun so that we are compliant with Britt's core value there. Why is my PowerPoint not wanting to switch? Here, come on, thing. This poll software is just giving me some fits lately. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the background.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'll tell another joke.
All right, so, please, and thank you.
So I don't know if you've heard or not, but one of the really famous chocolatiers developed a new product that has 50% less moisture in it. Dryer lint.
Terrible. Your other one was good. That one's like the dumb humor that I'm used to. Okay, so as we get into this, a story about kind of why core values are important, kind of what led me to that. For those of you that are leading people, I have one of the most epic interview questions ever. This was asked to me about 10 years ago. I was working with a company called Del Frisco's, or interviewing anyway. Some of you probably know them, great steak. And they asked me a question I was not prepared for. If you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be? It caught me off guard because that's not a question that you tend to study for on the list of things you prepare for. And so for a moment I was like, resourceful. I'm usually can figure things out. I'm good about that. I leverage my network, whatever. And they liked that answer, which was good. Another really, really good one they asked me right after that. My mind was just spent after this interview was done. Really good one for accountants. What of these, and I'm actually going to ask you, Britt, see what your response is. Which of these is the most important out of these three? Accuracy, timeliness, or relevance?
Accuracy, timeliness, or relevance? Relevance.
Why is that?
It doesn't matter if it's accurate if it's not timely. It doesn't matter if it's accurate or timely if it's not relevant.
That is absolutely right. And I struggled through that. I kind of I showed my hand and struggled through my thought process, and eventually I got to that same point like a minute later. And this was in an audit committee chair. So he's like, "That's right. I love to see you struggle because most people do, and they end up getting it wrong." So it was a fun moment. Fast forward a little bit, and I changed. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but I changed my one word after thinking about that. I was like, that was an incredible question. It really made me think a bit. And after going through a session on accountability, which I'll cover in our little later, I changed mine to heart. Like, that's a good word right there. It means passion, compassion, love, things like that. But it's also an acronym for the ones that I've got: hospitality, efficiency, accountability, resourcefulness, and tenacity. And we'll cover those or each of the sections. We'll see the agenda in just a moment. But I wanted to start with my favorite Bible verse, Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And it's funny because I'm like, the word heart is in this, and I had already kind of defined this as my favorite verse before I did that and didn't even realize it. But Britt, let me ask you a question. How many times do you think the word heart is in the Bible? And we'll use the NIV as it varies, but we'll use that because that's the one most people are used to these days.
So that's it. So I don't know. What I do find
Take a
interesting
guess.
that I want to point out,
Yeah,
just my accounting. You mentioned audit. My audit brain is that you found a way to cheat at giving one word to describe yourself by giving one word that is actually an acronym for 5 other words. So just wanted to
absolutely. I
point
mean,
that out.
we're accountants, so acronyms are our lives, right? Accounting and IT. Like if you don't know 100 acronyms, then you're probably a little low. So take a guess. How many times do you think the word heart is in the Bible?
5,000.
Okay, you went higher than almost everybody I've ever asked that to. It's actually around 800 or so. It just kind of depends on which exact version that you're using. I can't remember the exact number. It's just over 800. Funny enough, the word brain not in there one time. Now, I don't think that means that God hasn't given us a brain. I think that means the word mind is in there quite a bit. But I think that underscores the importance of having a heart in all that you do and putting passion and love into it and not being lukewarm about things, really following your passion. So that's my favorite. I added in Britt's favorite as well, which is funny because it's really, really close. Britt, I'll let you read this one and give a little background on why you feel that way.
So my favorite is Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. So if you saw on my core value side, like that faith is the number one thing, and the reason for that is because I have faith that no matter what I'm facing, no matter how bad the challenge is, no matter what's going on, that God's going to work it for good. And again, that ties in back to your verse, right? Because the two really go hand in hand. So if you're
Absolutely.
doing your part, if you're putting your heart into what you're doing, then you can trust God with the result.
Definitely. Love to share that. And I think it's awesome that those are very similar. So importance of core values, and we'll kind of jump through each of the ones that I kind of picked and why, those are biblically kind of inspired and everything. These communicate what's important, right? So if it's not just something that is plastered on a website or maybe on the wall. I mean, you see that a lot, and that's kind of how I felt for a long time until this experience I had a few years ago. I'll get to that in a minute again. They also provide guidance and purpose for what you're doing. Okay, so if you're kind of stuck and you feel like you don't have purpose, well, what are those? And if you don't have core values, they're not just for corporate people or corporate companies; they're also for people. Enhance your reputation. So and this is more corporate, I would say, but when people understand what is important to you, that does enhance your reputation. I mean, I guess you could pick some that are crazy, but most people don't tend to do that. Another one, I think this is really important. I've got an example of this is they help set priorities. So I'm going to pull something over here. This is one of the things people often download from my website. This is what I call a priority framework. So you've probably heard of the Eisenhower matrix, where we have, less important, less urgent, and you kind of have the one up here. I also add, does it affect other people? Because everything seems like it's important and urgent, right? But when we really break it down, we say, well, does it affect a lot of other people? And how does it align with your core values? And again, yours could be different. Britt and I have core values that are somewhat aligned, a little different here and there, but at the end of the day, I think they're pretty similar. So what is that? And then some other factors, of course, with priorities. But I'll give you an example. I just need to go to my notes to get the exact couple of things here. If you have 4 things on your plate to do, you got to do some training, you got to update a report, resolve a customer billing issue, read and file some emails. Okay, Britt, what would you think of those things if we were to follow this matrix and apply our core values to it? What do you think is the highest priority? And it's a tough question. I mean, it's not designed to be easy, but thinking kind of through that.
That top right corner
Right,
there,
definitely
right?
the top right one. But if you have items like that, I can read them back. I probably should have put this on a slide. But if you have things like, okay, we got to update a report, got to do some training, got to do some, what was the other one? Resolve a customer issue. And then there was one other thing. What was it? Read some emails. Let's go ahead and eliminate that last one. Read emails. That can wait, right? Training. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, to me, it's the resolve the customer issues, right? Because that impacts more than just you.
It does. It's both in the little box up in the top right box, but it also, I think, hospitality or really, I use that because it makes the acronym work. But customer service is also probably a core value everybody should have. So if you are serving people externally, or maybe your customers are internal to your organization, whether it's your job or you're serving on a committee or something, those are the kind of things that I would prioritize. So that's kind of what I wanted to share around why core values are so helpful with setting priorities. I think that's a really big reason why to have them. They obviously strengthen the culture, otherwise people wouldn't do it. And then they foster alignment. So when it comes down to here's the initiatives, here's how everybody's going to do their different things, it's one of the things that helps them. So probably should have added importance to the agenda, but whatever. We'll just go with the rest of these. So we're going to touch on the 5 that I have. I've already kind of had put this together. We're going to integrate some of what Britt does as well and how he thinks about them. So you'll see something funny. We'll unpack that, give a couple of tips around it, share some thoughts, and then move on to the next one. I love to start with these memes. We'll probably spend more time in hospitality because Britt and I have spent time in hospitality. I feel like, are you getting triggered by this Willy Wonka meme just like I am, Britt?
Be funnier if it wasn't true.
yeah. I think it's funny because I spent time at Papacito's waiting tables. I almost bartended, but I, went off to college, and 3/4 of the people would go to Fridays to have drinks afterwards. And I'm like, I just want to go home and sleep. I mean, I wasn't even 21 yet, although I, probably could have had a drink here and there. But there is some truth to this. Hospitality and customer service is tough because you see people not always at their best. They might be impatient. They might be needy. And it's tough stuff. So there's also a biblical backing to each of these. Here's the one for hospitality. It's actually covered in the Bible in many different places. This is my favorite out of Hebrews. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it, right? And then there's the example of Jesus washing feet. I mean, there's many, many examples of how to take hospitality and demonstrate that actively. And that's something big that people tend to see. Another example I'll use, my day job is doing software demos a lot. So when you're looking at software, financial usually, often you'll have somebody who's the sales rep and then somebody who accompanies them and does more of the technical stuff, who's lived in the trenches, et cetera. That's what I do. And before COVID, I would go on site a lot, 2, 3, 4 times a month at least. And I would take some homemade Chex Mix. And I'd say, here, you guys can have this. You have an excuse to snack during the demo, but you got to ask questions and engage and limit the multitasking. I get it. There's always demands, but here you go. And people would mention that when we'd have a win release, when they sign, that was often quoted in there, and the Chex Mix was amazing. I'm like, it's hospitality, right? One more thing before I go through some tips and tricks. This can also kind of be applied to witnessing to others if that's important to you. Should be to all of us, some more than others. One of the guys I'm connected to on LinkedIn shared this, and I thought that is amazing, and it's so connected to how we witness. It's like, hey, Gina, I saw you on the dance floor. Do you have space for 2 to 4 more babies? I have a system for creating money, love, and children. You want to schedule a date to talk about it. So many people jump right to this when they're doing outreach, and I feel like a lot of times you see the same thing with sharing the gospel, witnessing, and testimony, as opposed to just, maybe it's like, oh, I saw what you're doing. Yeah, you're going to hell. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think that the right way is to slowly build relationships. You see this a lot with taking a casserole when somebody's sick or lost a loved one or something. That's the stuff that we should be doing. That's what hospitality, I think, means to me. I don't know, probably the same to you, Britt.
Yeah, and actually
probably got messages like this.
Yeah. Can I jump in with a story? I don't want to derail you too
Please,
much.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But I have a story that actually kind of ties everything together, what we've been talking about. So, you mentioned that I was in the restaurant industry before I got into accounting. So spent 10 plus years in the restaurant industry, managing restaurants, and, hospitality was just one of the core values. So I had gone back to grad school, gotten my master's in accounting, and was just looking for the right open door. I had been spent a year since I finished my master's just interviewing, trying to get in, and I couldn't get in any place. Just finding the right open door was tough. But what ultimately opened the door for me was there was a customer at my restaurant that came in, her and her husband came in every day and ate at our restaurant. And they were some of the most needy customers that you could imagine. And the majority of the people in the restaurant turned their noses up and hated it when they came in. But because I knew they were coming every day, regardless of their personality, I always went out of my way to take care of them. And it was actually those people that no one else liked that I went out of my way to take care of and to show hospitality to, that gave me the open door that I needed, that allowed me to get an interview at ConocoPhillips and ultimately get my foot in the door there. So if it wasn't for me doing those things, so I just hit on three things we talked about: hospitality. I demonstrated hospitality. I worked and put my full heart in my work and what I was doing, and trusted God with the results, and He opened the door, which got me to where I am now.
I absolutely love that. Really glad you shared, because that's similar to the approach I took. We had some really difficult people as well, and I didn't treat them any differently, because one, I feel like that's what Jesus would say. That's what I expect out of you. And everybody deserves your respect. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody's being physically or abusive in some way, we got to put our foot down, right? But if people are just being a little difficult, you might be the best part of their day, cracking a terrible joke like both of us do, or just being nice and smiling and giving them the service that nobody else will. I mean, that makes a big difference. So how do you apply hospitality? Well, I mean, what Britt just said is kind of trumps everything, but go the extra mile when you put people first. There's a quote I really love from Roger Staubach: "There's not a lot of traffic along the extra mile." It's awesome. It's kind of creative.
You would give a Cowboys quote.
I mean, I'm in Dallas. I'm not like diehard Cowboys, but I do root for them because I don't want to get beat up around here. This one comes directly. I'm sure you know who Danny Myers is, Britt, just from your time in the restaurant industry, but he has a really good approach that I think goes beyond hospitality about addressing mistakes, because we are all human. We all make mistakes. So 5 A's: be aware of it, which I do think awareness is lacking just in general. We're all very distracted. Acknowledge it, apologize, take action, and then additional generosity, right? So go out of your way. I would always pack no matter if there's a mistake or not, I would always pack a little bit more chips. Mexican restaurant, who wants to eat their leftovers without chips? So that was kind of my take, but I think you could use this in a lot of ways. Show genuine interest, make people feel special, let your personality shine a little bit. Get to know them a little bit, because guess what? It might land you a job someday. Obviously, be polite and respectful. I mean, I think these are basic things that just the world doesn't see enough of, really. Be yourself, and especially if you have a role that is either customer facing or hospitality in any way, you got to be tough. I mean, there are days where it's not going to be a lot of fun, but make it fun. Try to make it fun. And then I've got a quote here, one of my favorite quotes ever, because it's also funny when you think about it, from Justine Voigt: "Hospitality is making your guests feel at home, even if you wish they were." I mean, that's like golf clap every time I read that. It's awesome. So there's hospitality. We're going to do another quick polling question, because we have to do so many of these to make the CPE people happy. Have you ever worked in a hospitality related industry? So we've got some never. I know Britt has, and me. I mean, I did often. And you can stretch this if you want. What does that industry really mean? Generally, it's restaurants and hotels and where you're taking care of people in some extent. So I'll leave that for just a second longer. Looks like almost half and half. Most of us have. That's good. I'm going to move on here, and we're going to talk about efficiency. Okay. One of my favorite comics to describe efficiency, because so many people are like, yeah, I'm too busy. I don't have time to make myself better or make some process better. And the joke is, or the irony is, if you were to take just a little bit of time to make it better, you will save so much time that, yeah, you might get behind an hour or a day or a week or maybe a month, but you'll catch up so quickly that you'll wonder why you never did it. I have a couple of friends who are so bad about this, and I kind of want to strangle them like Bart and Homer in The Simpsons. And it's like, hello, round wheels. And I share this with them, and it still doesn't do a whole lot. Now, I took this comic and I updated it and added AI to it. So if we're accountants, then we have probably the same thing. Got a couple of guys taking inventory. You got to love AI misspelling the word column, because, that's how it works usually. So there's your newer way of doing that. I'm going to share, there are 3 life events that I've had happen that made me very, very focused on efficiency. I'm just going to share one for now, because, we want to get through all this. When I was interning in public accounting, lived with my parents like you do when you intern. And this was many years ago. It was before we had self-checkout. I was at a Walmart. Of all the 50 lines that they had, or checkout stations, obviously 2 were open. It's like 9-10 p.m. on a Monday. And so I get an express line because I only have a couple of snacks. And there's a lady at the front with a cart full of groceries, 5 kids with her. And they're like, ma'am, this is the express lane. She's like, well, I have 5 kids with me. I can do whatever the math was, 60, 90. And we were just like, just let her go. It'll be quicker. It's taken forever, well before smartphones. So the torture was even worse. And I'm, It easily took over 30 minutes just to go through this line. This is after I did my shopping. And so I've gotten bored of Snake on my phone. I used the calculator and realized that if you spend an hour of a week doing something and you live to 84 years old, that's 6 months of your life. I've done this math dozens of times because sometimes it seems like it doesn't work, but an hour a week is 6 months of your life. What does that mean? That means you need to pay attention to the little things because they add up quickly. And that's why I've been obsessed with efficiency, that and a few other things. So what does the Bible have to say about this? Well, and this kind of goes along with it. Thessalonians 3:11. We hear that some among you are idle and disruptive. They're not busy. They're busybodies. Never tire what is good, doing what is good. And what this really means is, are you doing things just to be busy, or are you doing things that really matter? And I had an example of this. I had an experience where joined a new company. I didn't really interview the team. I interviewed with the CFO, and he loved all the different things I could do to help improve the process. Learned really quickly after that he didn't want to spend any money to do them, so most of that was with Excel. It was pretty good, but could have been better. But one of the people on the team that I met was very smart. She's just so focused for kind of forest for the trees issue, right? And we found I said, hey, show me this process you were talking about. It took like 6 hours a month to do something with construction and update all these things. And she'd send it on to Bob in construction. I said, I've got some ideas. You're doing this one location at a time. I think we can automate it, maybe make it better while we're doing it. Let's go talk to Bob. We get up. She gets kind of red in the face. She's like, Bob hasn't worked here in like a year and a half. And I'm like, then why are you doing this? She's like, I don't know. Nobody told me to stop. And I was like, wow, we clearly need to have a chat about what's really important. So we ended up shaving off a third to half of the things on our standard kind of monthly checklist. And I bet you have some of those in your organization, maybe even your own kind of personal checklist as well. Relevancy is very important. You're like, well, what does this have to do with efficiency? If you don't need to do it, back to that question I asked Britt earlier, if it's not relevant, it doesn't matter how efficient you do it, right? So wanted to share that very eye-opening experience for me. I'm always kind of looking around for it now. So yeah, go ahead. You have a thought?
Yeah. So that's one of the, efficiency, productivity is kind of one of my specialties. Used to work with this group here called the Productivity at Work group before we disbanded it. But there's this thing called the 5% principle. If you can figure out how to get 5% better at what you do, you can turn yourself from average to elite. And we've discovered that if we could make each computer user in the company 5% more efficient with how they use their machine, it would save the company $80 million in productivity. But my point I was trying to get to is that I actually lost my point getting tied up in that story.
Okay, it's okay. It happens to me too.
But tying back to scripture too, another good scripture here is Ephesians 5:15 and 16. It tells you to be wise and to make the most of every opportunity, and that's what efficiency is all about. Now I remembered what I was going to say. So one of my teachings that I had in there was that before you automate anything, you need to ask yourself some questions about whether you should even be doing it or not. Because if you don't have an effective process to start, then if you're taking bad data or crap and automating it, you're just getting faster crap. You're not doing anything to make anything better.
You're absolutely right. We obviously talk about this a lot when I do demos and presentations for my day job. And one of my favorite kind of videos, memes, pictures, whatever, images. I don't know if you ever saw I Love Lucy growing up, Britt. I saw a few. There's that scene where she's in a chocolate factory and the machine is going fast and she can't keep up with it. To me, that's what that means, is if the process is bad, automation is going to make a hot mess much faster. And thinking through the process before you start to automate it, that is exactly right. You're like reading through. It's like you've seen a copy of these slides. The first thing is be aware of what you're doing. And awareness, already covered that in hospitality. I think it's something that we could do probably for really any topic or core value or whatever, and focus on what matters. Because again, if you're going to automate something that doesn't matter, that's just waste of time. Don't be afraid to try things new. And I wrote this before AI hit mainstream 3 years ago, and it's more relevant than ever. If you want to get better at something, you're going to have to get a little bit uncomfortable and try something you never have. Otherwise, it's never going to change. And as accountants, we're kind of bad about this. That whole same as last year thing. I mean, that's a stigma that we're associated with. I try not to do that, but It's easy to be comfortable and get in the gear and take that caveman approach we saw a minute ago. We're too busy to do something new, but don't be afraid, schedule it and commit to it. I'm big, and this probably goes with that productivity group you're talking about, Britt. I use shortcuts and templates and all kinds of things that take this efficiency approach I've used. It's going to pop up here after the 5th bullet here. Think once, apply often, and refine when you need to. And I try to do that with everything, right? Because rethinking is like a big waste of time. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite things to use on my phone is the Chick-fil-A app, because I can reuse my order, and they're awesome. They're polite. They embody everything about what we're talking about today: efficiency, hospitality, all the things. Like, they are the embodiment of what we're talking about. I'm assuming you like Chick-fil-A up there in Osaka, or not Osaka. How do you say your town?
Owasso.
Owasso. I'm sorry. Tulsa suburb. We'll just go with that. I'm assuming you like Chick-fil-A.
I'm in Oklahoma, not Japan.
I'm terrible with names and places. On a Google map I can find it, but no, that's my thing. I'm assuming you like Chick-fil-A, right?
Sure. Who doesn't like Chick-fil-A?
Do you use the app when you order?
Yes.
Okay, good. You stumbled there for a second. I thought I was going to have to slap you through the camera.
I'm a little different with food, so
that's okay. You don't have to explain. It's okay. The whole idea, though, of saving that and not having to do it again, like, that's the approach I try to take with everything, because it saves a lot of time. It reduces errors and, gets me through the line faster than the other people. Communication is something we spend a lot of time on, even with AI helping us draft things. I know it's probably something y'all are doing. I certainly do. Be simple, be clear, try to eliminate the number of back and forths, because so much of our communication is asynchronous these days. That's a big one. And once you've done all these things, then we can talk about technology. It is last for a reason. If you can get better from a mindset perspective, from a process perspective, everything else, then let's layer in technology. Because if we don't, then otherwise we're going to have that I Love Lucy episode. So there's kind of a visual of the what I call the efficiency approach. Think once. With a lot of what I do is with Excel. So I try to put formulas everywhere and have very minimal inputs, or use Power Query to grab it. A lot of approaches I've done there, but it can be applied all over the place.
All right, I'm going to ask you.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you a question, and if this is going to sidetrack us too much, we can solve this to the end. But
okay.
I know that you like me and other accountants are an Excel expert, and we've mentioned AI and not being afraid to try something new. So one thing that I found difficult for accountants with AI is Excel. When you're first starting with Excel, you can use simple formulas and build on them, right? So, but the simple ones that you use still add efficiency. So you just keep making it better. AI is iterative, and you have to get good at it to be useful at it. But usually what you start with doesn't actually help you, and sometimes gives you wrong data until you actually learn how to use it. So how, you don't have to answer this now, but something that you can put on the back burner now, as someone who's works with accountants, how do you get accountants to think differently about AI when they're used to Excel brain?
You could go. I'll answer this a little bit. All right. How about that? Because there's so many ways you can go with that question. It's a really good question. That's a big use case for me for AI. I've used Gemini, and I've switched more to Copilot now that I have more access to it. And it's both internal and the whole of it, internal to just the company related stuff. Using it to write VBA code and to write formulas is absolutely two of my favorite of maybe 10 use cases. Research being another one. Make me a fun image is obviously another one. I think that you just have to get pretty good. You don't have to be perfect, but pretty good at prompting. Like, write me a formula that can, like, here's the data I have. Here's what the goal is. And then ask it to write that. The simpler it is, the better it's going to be. The more complex, the tougher it's going to be. Shameless plug for the training, another webinar I'm doing on Friday with Lambda. The craziest Lambda I've ever made. And Lambda is just a custom function. So write me a function I can reuse, like as if it's my own, like equals sum. Instead of sum, you give it its own name and parameters. The craziest one I've ever done, it took me probably 12 hours to fix, and I kind of iterated and improved it. But the very first start, I'm like, I'm going to ask Gemini how to do this. It got it mostly right. There were some things I was like, well, I wanted to do this and this. It wasn't perfect, but getting 80% there is absolutely worth it. So what I would say is try it. Here's the funny thing about AI. You can ask AI how to use AI better. I know it's shocking and seems weird, but if you're like, I'm just getting started with AI, what are some tips and tricks? You can legit ask that exact prompt and it will give you some. And then that'll make you think more and bigger. And it's like a ripple effect, just like you were saying, Britt. Is that helpful?
Yep.
Okay. That's definitely the approach I would take. Like, you can't be afraid. You just got to get started because everybody else is going to do this and you don't want to be left behind. Quote to go along with this one: efficiency is clever laziness. I love that because I describe myself as lazy a lot. I bet you probably would too. It's because I just don't want to do the same thing again. I want to problem solving is what drew me to accounting. So there's that.
I don't call myself that, but my wife does.
Yeah, it's okay. Somebody does. As long as it's the right kind of lazy, right? Free up time so you can do what's more important. Accountability is our next topic. Hopefully you appreciate this obviously very old picture because of I don't know, I'm guessing that's like a Tahoe that's in the background there. The idea behind this picture and the whole concept of accountability is you should never say that's not my job. Okay. Give you a quick story. And again, this is great because I have Britt here that I can kind of challenge on this or ask the question. Let's say that you are running an airport, Britt, okay, which is ironic because I'm going to be at one in a little bit here going to Michigan. What do you think if you're running an airport, what is very important to you? What is a core value that airport should have?
Safety.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's take that for a second. Okay. Let's say you're in the airport. You see that there's a spill on the ground, maybe as you're entering or something, and you see a guy clearly works there. And you say, hey, there's a spill over there. And the guy says, that's not my job. How do you feel about safety?
Not good.
Yeah, I'm about to get on a plane. These guys don't even care, right? Now let's flip this just a little bit. Let's say the same scenario comes in and you ask the guy and he goes, hey, that's not what I focus on, but I'm going to get the guy right now that has the equipment and skills to take care of that. Now, how do you feel about safety?
Well, better.
They clearly prioritize it and take it seriously. And that's exactly what it means to live out your core values is everybody needs to be in the loop. Even if it's not your responsibility, eliminating the phrase, that's not my job is absolutely crucial. Everybody should do that. Your job description, that's just how you apply the core values. You should take your company ones, your personal ones, like how can I apply these in what I do throughout the day? To some extent, it's not always relevant, but you get what I'm saying. So I love this image because it kind of demonstrates that. And then from a biblical perspective, I had to go with Job just because Job doesn't get a whole lot of love. What will I do when God confronts me? What will I do when called to account? The word account is used quite a bit throughout the Bible in different ways. This may not be the best for this. Job is one of those really interesting books if you go through it. Fun fact, when I never thought about the concept of accountability through most of my career, and I'm an accountant. That seems kind of ironic, right? So when I asked my kids, I was kind of prepping to do a session on accountability, very much like what we're doing today, just it was more focused on that. I asked my kids, what do you think accountability means? And my oldest one, now 17, she was probably 10 or 12 then. She goes, the ability to be an accountant. And I'm like, adorable, accurate. Okay, that might be one. I just thought it was just a fun moment. But accountability is really, it's like responsibility, but a level up from that. And that's what we're going to cover here as we go through some, how do you do that? What does it really mean? Because like me, you might not have given a whole lot of thought to it, but accountability, when it is ingrained in the culture, can have more of a positive impact in so many ways, not just profitability, but so many ways, KPIs, et cetera, than anything else. Okay. Aligning your goals and responsibilities to corporate initiatives, to other people, teams, whatever, and committing to them is a big part of accountability, and making sure that you're committing to what needs to be done so that other people aren't affected. There's a book called The Oz Principle. I'll kind of hold this up and hopefully the blur doesn't get it. It's not Dr. Oz. This is it's a great book on accountability that uses the Wizard of Oz as kind of a backdrop for it. So the 4 characters of the Wizard of Oz, they kind of had something about accountability they had to improve on or focus on to get through, the end of the story. Okay. So the 4 steps of those from that book: see it, own it, solve it, and do it. Right. And I'll let you kind of, I don't want to give away what the book kind of says about which character goes along with each of those steps. It's just a fun exercise doing that and going through a session on this. There's this concept of staying above the line. So there are reasons that things happen and there are excuses. Like if somebody's late to work, you might say, oh, well, there's traffic. Okay, now if that happens repeatedly, now it is an excuse. If they go out of their way to improve on that, then it's a reason. That's the difference there. Feedback is absolutely crucial. It's like the cornerstone of accountability, right? So if you don't have a feedback mechanism for the people that you work with, whether it's your supervisor, the other people you're around, that is absolutely huge. I like the start, stop, continue approach, kind of like a traffic light. What are we doing that we should start doing? That's the green light. What are we doing that's working well and should continue? That's the yellow. And what should we stop doing? And that's the red. It's easy to say, hey, I'm going to go do something. I want you to observe me and give me feedback. If you give them something very easy to understand like that, it's easier for them to pick up on it subconsciously as they're observing, right? If you just say, hey, what feedback do you have? A lot of times people are like, I don't know. They might come up with something. They might not. But if you provide them with a process or a system like that, it works really well. Another one, I know it's ironic because we both worked in restaurants, the feedback sandwich. You ever heard of that, Britt?
Oh, yeah.
Positive, constructive, positive. I like the idea of it, but it ends up being confusing, right? I think the traffic light's just so much easier to kind of get, right? Start, stop, continue. It's just easy, you know?
I think one of the keys with feedback that you have to, especially as a leader, is you have to have that credibility and that trust with your team in order for that to work right. So that goes back to the other principles, right? So that integrity, which is one of mine. If you walk with integrity, if people know that you're true to your word and what you say, then your feedback means a lot more to them than if they can't trust you.
Absolutely. There's a quote I heard from a gentleman who's in the hospitality industry. He's now a regional director at Whataburger, which is one of my favorite brands. What did he say? Rules without relationships leads to rebellion. It's kind of the flip of what you just said. Like if you don't have those relationships of trust and going to bat for your team, then they're not really going to care so much about the feedback you give them. My advice is to think of feedback as a gift because it is, right? And don't take it personally. The people, if they're giving you feedback, unless they're a bully, and that's becoming more rare, at least in the workplace I've seen, they're taking their time out of it to help you. Like they want you to get better. Now, they may not be great at giving it, and that's fine. Maybe you can give them feedback in return, which is ironic. But think of it as a gift, and it's not personal. It's about making you better. And if you take that approach, it's valuable. It is a gift, right?
Yeah, I had a conversation with one of my friends not too long ago. He had stumbled upon a conversation where someone had given some feedback on him to his boss that wasn't great and that he didn't agree with. And he's like, what do I do with this? And he was just really, really dwelling on it and kind of internalizing it and feeling negative. And I said, stop. I was like, you know how this person feels about your work now. I was like, you didn't know that before. You probably would have thought that they, thought everything was fine and dandy. I was like, but now you know when you work with or this person that you need to adjust your approach. I was like, that's valuable. So would you rather have them just thought all of these things and you not known it? Because then you couldn't do anything about it. And I was like, but now you know how they feel, and regardless of whether you agree with it or not, you know that you have to approach them differently if you want to work well with them and be effective.
I mean, the other thing I think that goes right along with that is think of accountability or feedback as like coaching. You know, if you say you're playing baseball and there's the pitching coach who sees clearly that your mechanics are a little bit off. In the moment, you can't see that. You might not even feel it, but that coach is there to say, hey, try something a little different. And if you're the one giving feedback, obviously be kind and be respectful about it and let them know I'm giving you this because I care. If somebody is resistant to feedback, start with that phrase, and it does work. I've seen it work many times. And then obviously respect is a part of that. Now, the quote that goes here, I think it is good, from Thomas Paine. He talked a lot about accountability way back in the day, like a couple hundred years ago, I think. Anyone holding themselves accountable to nobody shouldn't be trusted by anybody. I have a joke that I thought was really good that goes along with this, Britt. With great power comes great responsibility. To pay the electric company.
Yeah. You had jokes on there about relationships earlier. And before I got married, I would just sit at stoplights for forever because I didn't have anyone sit next to me to tell me the light was green.
It's really fun. That kind of goes right along with what I just said. I think that one's on my list. All right, let's do a quick poll. and then we'll move on into resourcefulness. Speed up just a little bit so we get out of here on time. You ever said that's not my job? I think I said it a few times up until I had that epiphany. I think I probably should have put that option on there. I did before I came to this session. Looks like most of you are at least not constant about this. My challenge to you is to try to eliminate it from the vocabulary of yourself and the people that you have influence on, because I'm telling you, if you take this approach, it's a huge shift. I mean, forget about efficiency, all these other things. That one thing had a bigger impact on my career than anything else. And part of it was because everybody else was going through this at the same time. So I think all of us having that shared mindset and culture and everything was helpful. So fun stuff there. All right. Resourcefulness. Love this image. Doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you don't know how to use them, it will not be enough. So the guy doesn't know how to use a ladder. Awesome, because I think he can kind of get it right away. What does the Bible tell us about this? I use the parable of the talents from Matthew 25. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant, you know that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed." So being resourceful with God has given us, I think, is very important. What a lot of people miss out on is that they have resources and they just don't use them. So any thoughts on that, Britt, that you've seen?
I'll try to think of something shorter. There's a lot that I've seen. I'll
tell you what,
going back to my early days.
Yeah, go ahead if you've got something.
I would say going back to my early days in the restaurant industry, one thing that I've never struggled with money. That's not to say that I've always made a lot of money, but I've always made good use of what I had. And I feel like because I've always put God first with my finances, and because I've been a good steward of what's been given to me, that I just get more given to me, and that I've never had to worry about it. So back in the early days in the restaurant industry, when I was waiting tables, I remember coming in on a Friday night and every other person being like, "I have to make, X number of dollars so that I can pay my rent or so that I can pay my bills." I never said that once because I always had what I needed. Now, that meant that I didn't always eat out as much as they did. I didn't go out drinking every night like they did. I had to make other choices. But it's all about being diligent and that mindset. Like, there are people that make millions and millions of dollars. Look at these athletes that just declare bankruptcy because they don't know how to manage their money and what's been given to them well.
Absolutely. That's big. I don't think I was going to cover finances specifically in here in resourcefulness, but I mean, not many more important things from a resourcefulness standpoint. And I think that goes right along with the parable of the talents that God wants us to learn from that experience. So how can you be resourceful? In general, know what your resources are and how best to use them. And the example I'll give here, I've done a lot with Excel over the years, gotten really good at it. So if that's a need, you need training or something, that's something I certainly help with. But what I found is that people have this powerful application and they don't know how to use it. One of the teams I inherited wasn't even using formulas. And I'm like, you don't just enter. It's not a calculator. There's more to it. And so basic baby steps make a big difference. But it's not just about Excel. Every app that you touch, like Britt said, try to go 5% more than you are today, and you'll be pretty elite compared to most people. That might mean going to conferences or a training or use the manual. Nowadays, we can ask AI and have a conversation about it, and it's pretty darn good. You might want to corroborate the results you get from your prompt, but there are so many more resources we have, and yet there's a lot of wasted time and money and energy, space, etc. I saw this acronym somewhere and I thought, that's awesome. It's not just about learning your resources for your own benefit, but also sharing that. Spreading helpful advice raises everyone. I was like, that's cute. That's like something you'd learn maybe in elementary school or church or something, but now you've seen it, so you won't forget it like me. Planning ahead is huge. Whether it's where am I going to park or what's the best route to take to avoid traffic, everything, being proactive. There's a reason that's the first habit in the Covey 7 habits. So it goes along with resourcefulness. Learn how you think and learn. I didn't really learn effectively how my brain kind of works and thinks and learns until college. Thankfully then and not after, because it's helped me get jobs and whatnot. Might have been more difficult without it. But I look at my oldest daughter and she's killing it. She's never gotten below an A+ ever. About to go to college and wants to do honors. I'm like, yeah, I think you should. I was not that way in high school. I didn't realize how my brain really thought, and I didn't know what my passions were. So I started in genetics, hated it because of all the biology. And then once I got into accounting, it was more problem solving. It was great. learned how my brain worked and everything. That's important. That is one of the best resources that you've been given. So you might want to learn a little bit about how it works. Continuously learning is awesome. It doesn't stop in school. You should devote some of your time to learning and getting better at things. That's why being efficient is so important, because it frees up time to do more learning. And then not sacrificing quality. I mean, you've probably bought something that was cheap and had to replace it again. You know, that's just one kind of example of not sacrificing quality. You know, we don't want to do rework. And so that's a part of resourcefulness, maybe other things too. Great quote here from Tony Robbins. It's not resources, but resourcefulness and how we use those that really makes a difference. Goes right along with that little picture of the ladder. So, all right, we got just under 10 minutes left. We're going to go through tenacity, maybe have a couple minutes of Q&A, and then let you guys off to the rest of your day. Okay. Some other things, though, before that, some good resources. I'll just put this up here because I think it's a good checklist. Obviously, AI is a big one you're using now. It's like Google on steroids in some ways. Library, maybe obsolete. What's funny there is I learned a lot of what I do from Google, and I was like, Dad, how did you do this? And he's like, well, son, we had the library and I had to go there. It's a fun moment of hearing that from him. Find out who the SMEs are for the tools that you use a lot and learn from them, but of course share that with others. But all these are good resources. Not enough people are leveraging them. Okay, yeah. Hey, go ahead.
Two books that if you haven't read, you should read too. Are Atomic Habits by James Clear and Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel. Both of those key to help you learning how your brain thinks and how to position yourself for success.
Atomic Habits I have read. I reference it often, but Winning the War in Your Head. That sounds awesome.
In your mind.
In your mind, yeah, same thing. You'll have to send me that one so that I remember to put it on my list, because it's about to be the new year and we can set our new priorities and initiatives. So we're going to end up with tenacity here. I used to have other words, and I thought tenacity is good because it's like perseverance and persistence, but it's a step above that, because it implies that you're not going to give up. You're going to pivot along the way. You're not just going to keep doing the same thing over and over, because that might be insane. What does the Bible say about this? There's a lot of things you could use for here. I was trying to find something that plays off the word perseveres. And so I thought, well, why not just take something out of 1 Corinthians? Because I was at a wedding this last weekend. It was already in here well before the wedding. Love always protects, trusts, hopes, and always perseveres. And that's a good example of what it should be. I mean, I think about tenacity in our marriage. My wife and I don't always get along. There's different approaches in how we spend our time and money and other things. But at the end of the day, love perseveres. So there's that. How do you be tenacious? Well, focus on your goals and adapt. Right? We all have goals. Here's where we want to be, and how we get there can change quite a bit as we go there. That's fine, but committing to the goals and putting the goalpost and celebrating milestones as you go is huge. Embracing fear as an opportunity. This is a big one. Kind of goes along with a lot of things, but I think I really like how it fits here within tenacity. Britt, sorry, I have a friend named Brett, so I'm constantly kind of making sure I'm saying the right name. Do you know the acronym for fear? The reframe?
I remember hearing it at one point in time, but it's not coming to me right now.
Face everything and respond. So it's a great way to look at it. It's like, you know what? Why am I afraid of this? It's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day, unless you're talking about being at the top of a building. Most things don't really even compare. The other thing is F everything and run is another way that some people say it. I'm like, no, don't think that way. Think the other way. So whichever way you want to lean, I guess.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. There's another one I'm going to use with the word fail. So embrace that as a learning experience, because people fail all the time, like Edison with a light bulb, or all these other incredible inventions we've benefited from over the years. Those are based on lots of failure, right? Do you know the one for fail, the acronym for fail?
For the sake of time, just hit me with it.
All right. Future attempt in learning. Now, I tell you, when you reframe these things, it makes it much easier for you to not be afraid and take that small risk. Hey, there we go. I thought one of those was going to come up. I mentioned this a moment ago. Celebrate successes as you go, because some goals you have are going to take a long time. Like when I did the CPA exam, right? I studied and we were newlywed. It didn't work that well as after hours. And so I said, I need to do this first, prioritize it, and get it done before work. And then guess what? As I passed each of the sections, we kind of celebrated to some extent. So I think that's huge for building momentum and keeping it, and then giving it one more step. So many people quit when they're on the 2-yard line, is what I heard somebody say, just a football analogy. Try that. I've been doing this push-up challenge thing this year. So today was day 344 of the year. I have done 344 push-ups today. Not easy. And I'm got 3 more weeks, and then this whole thing is done. And then I got to figure something else out. But giving it one more step, that's a fun analogy to that, because every day I add one, right? I really love this. I wish I could say who actually said it, because it's really not attributable to anybody. Tenacity is the ability to hang on when letting go appears most attractive. Great way to kind of look at that and wrap up these core values here. This is a little bit different in terms of the poll. It's not a poll. This is a more activity where you share what your core value is, and it will make a word cloud. You guys know mine, so I feel like I can't really play along here. I don't know Brits, but it should let you just type this in a similar way that you click the poll, the answer for the poll. Is it working for you, Britt? Have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried it.
Well, I just want to make sure it's working, because every once in a while I need to change the polling software, but it's a lot of effort. I've got a whole bunch of these in there. Honesty, trust, integrity. Okay.
Grit, that goes along with your tenacity there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen a lot of acronyms for grit where the T is tenacity.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I think most of y'all have put one in there. Did I? I thought I put mine in there. No, I must have done something else. Okay. So I think we're good there. Let me move on to maybe we'll take just let's do the Q&A like right at the end, just in case we go over, because then people can stay on if they want to ask us some questions about this. I do want to make sure we cover the key takeaways. Hospitality, the way that I look at that is not just living the golden rule, the platinum rule, taking care of others better than you would expect. And that's unfortunately pretty easy to do these days. Efficiency, you heard my mindset, think one, supply often, refine rarely, and continue to learn and get better. Accountability is about integrity, ownership, embracing feedback. Resourcefulness is about being creative, leveraging your tools, figuring out, asking for help, leveraging your network, etc. And then tenacity, roll up your sleeves, adapt, and don't quit. So those are examples. You can steal from these. I would love that. That would be very much a compliment. Or take your own and use those. And I mean, I put these on my LinkedIn. I put them on my resume. Maybe not all the words, but the acronym and everything. I think that makes a difference. It helps you go about your day. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to try to do one of these every month or so, free webinar, just, with something impactful once a month or so in 2026. It's not completely free to be able to offer CPE for that. Excuse me. So if you like this, I do have some stuff I do on the side, some really cool Excel tools. I'm going to show some of that on Friday. If you haven't already signed up for that one, efficiency projects, obviously training like this. And then I've been doing some productivity coaching, not a whole lot, but whatever. And then different places I'm putting stuff out there. Those are all links there. You can leverage if you want. This is an example of what I put on LinkedIn every single day. I put daily quote and a dad joke, somewhat popular, get some interaction with that. I think it's fun, not just to put humor out there, but also something impactful. I feel like that's a good example of what we shared today. And then this is the one on Friday. If you want to learn how to build a custom function in Excel and why that matters and leverage some of the ones I've done, you can grab that. I will be sending out a copy of this deck in PDF format to everybody who attended. And then most importantly, the last polling question. I aim for all A's and B's. I think I've gotten 1 C out of like a couple thousand of these. That means I'm doing something right. So I'll leave that up there for a moment. As you guys if you have to hop off, that's fine. We'll do a little Q&A. If you guys just want to pick our brains on anything, we're happy to stay around for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, once you fill in this one, you're free to go. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you appreciated this. Looks like all A's that you did. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, all the things. Yeah. So let me see if there's any. I set this one up a little bit differently. So not seeing anything in the Q&A, totally fine. People are hopping off, so I don't think there's going to be much on the Q&A there. Next time I'm going to use the town hall feature. I think that'll be a little bit different. It'll be easier to kind of track some of this. Any parting words, Britt?
I just accidentally spilled some of my dog's anti-tick medicine on my clock. Now it just talks.
I had a couple I didn't do. Here's one that's relevant. My kids told me they wanted a cat for Christmas, and it kind of threw me off because usually I do a turkey, but whatever they want, I guess. I feel like that might have been one of yours I stole.
Maybe. Oh yeah. I did do that one a couple weeks ago. So I had this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had this procedure done a few weeks ago, and I asked the doctor. I said, "How often do people die during this procedure?" He said, "Just once."
Yeah. It's funny because I don't think a lot of people are going to catch that right away. I'll end this. This will be my last one here. This is a good cow one. I had to give up my vegetarian diet. It turns out they're a lot harder to catch than cows. The cows work, man. They're great. Hey, as a thank you to you for joining and supporting this, I am relinquishing the crown. I'm going to officially change my LinkedIn title after today. You can put that back on there. You can donate it. You can do whatever you want. But I would love to do another face-off at some point. I think that was fun. So,
yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the session. If you guys need anything else from us, you can hit us up on social, or you can get a hold of me and I can pass it along if it's something for Britt. But thank you so much for joining. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day and happy holidays.